All right, so we are back in the Hinge-Cut bedding area. I am just going to finish up my video from last time where I got cut short, ran out of space on the phone. So right now, I'm walking through the top part of the Hinge-Cut. Like I said, this is a ridge. We have a massive swamp down there that the deer bed in the winter. But the goal with this Hinge-Cut is to get them to bed in here during the hunting season, which we did a good job with last year. So since I made my video last time, we've had a lot of snow and a lot of really cold weather. Just had snow a handful of days ago, and you can see we got a really good trail going through the top part, and I know there's trails going through the bottom too. So I'm just gonna work my way through the rest of this cut that I wasn't able to work through last time. You can see there's a trail cutting down that way. I'm gonna stick on this top trail. Pretty cool if we maybe found a shed too. But it's only February 2nd. I'm guessing we don't have much for sheds on the ground yet. It seems like about, at least based on our cameras, I would say mid-February is when I start to see them really drop around this part of Minnesota. All right, so we'll cut through the top. Ugh, that's nasty. Red. I don't know what that is. Looks like blood, something. All right, cut through the top part here. When you're hinge cutting, the safest trees to hinge cut will be your smaller to medium-sized trees. Trees that could substantially hurt you if they fell would be ones not to cut. We did hinge. You'll see a couple here. I had my brother-in-law helping me, and we did it safely. But I don't hinge trees like that most of the time, and definitely not when I'm by myself. I cut a few maybe slightly bigger trees today and just conventionally cut them down because I'm not going to mess around with something that could hurt me. It's not worth it for a deer. But here's one corner of the hinge cut. The reason we cut a couple of these bigger ones down because there wasn't a lot of sunlight getting in here. But now if you look up, look at that. Canopy is blasted wide open, so this area should just blow up with woody browse come next summer. And all it took was getting about 3 decent sized trees to the ground. I mean, if you look at these tracks too, like the deer can go almost anywhere in here. Like this is only sitting up about 2.5 feet right here, and there's a trail cutting right underneath it. So as long as you don't create blockades, you should be able to have your deer move freely through these hinge cuts. So I'll slip underneath here. But yeah, deer definitely in here. Right there you can see there's a rub. It was on a hinge tree made this summer, and look at that, the top of it's just sprouting out. So the tree stayed alive, and we got some extra food there, extra cover, and then we also opened up the canopy. So I'll cut this way. So this area was I was trying to set it up for buck beds. Probably not ideal. Bucks like to really be up high or on a point. But there were a couple little ridges and flat spots. I thought I could maybe stick a buck, and I did do a buck bed, I remember, right next to that tree this last summer, and I checked it about a week or two later, and there was a huge track and hair in the bed. So my assumption was a buck had to have used it because there was hair down there, and I saw his big track, but had it sitting right there. There's not a bed there right now, but there's definitely something in there. As you can see right over here, there's tons of deer beds. There's a bed, there's a deer bed, a bunch of beds right over here. Bed. My assumption is when you got this many beds together, we probably got a doe family group plopping down here. This area, they really just bed in probably at night. They go get a bite to eat. They'll pop over the ridge here where the food is, and then they come back in here and bed down for a little bit, then go get a bite to eat, and then they probably head back to the swamp. I got a camera sitting in here, just kind of doing inventory, and I'm not getting a lot of daytime pictures. Only daytime pics I'm really getting right now is when the deer are cutting through right before dark to to get to the food. So here's a main trail working back. So when I talk about buck and doe beds, you know, there's some competing theories on that. Some guys say, you know, you just want to create the doe habitat and the bucks will fall in line. I like to try stack my hinge cuts. So, you know, back there's multiple different spots with where I kind of raked out deer beds where there's entry and exit routes. You know, deer don't want to feel like they're backed into a corner, otherwise they won't use it. So you want to make sure that it's really easy to navigate through. But there's a lot of different areas a deer could bed. When I created this area initially this summer, I really just tried to create one or two pockets to create a kind of a buck bed. But in theory, I think this is going to be a doe bedding area. I should have kind of created my buck bed more on a higher spot, which I did do a lot further down the hinge cut. And in my first video, I mentioned that I did actually have a buck bed in that bed. So it did work somewhat. But you can stack, even doe family groups are territorial, but you can stack your doe family groups into one hinge cut as long as you give them plenty of space where they can they don't have to see each other or be near each other, because they definitely want their own area. But if you give them lots of side cover and the opportunity where they don't have to be stacked on top of each other, you can put multiple deer in one hinge cut. The biggest thing is just giving them that space to roam and making sure they don't have to bump into each other. I would say in this hinge cut you could probably stack 2 to 3 different doe family groups, just given how it's laid out. So alright, so we'll cut back through the bottom here. One other thing with hinge cuts, I like to make mine kind of in the Midwest here, big enough to drive like a four-wheeler through. That's kind of my test. When I'm done, I'll take the four-wheeler through it, and it's kind of a maze. You can drive all around. It's not just one straight line going through, but I got holes cut all over the place so the deer can move freely, but also have plenty of cover. So that's what I did in this one. One other thing too, when we're talking about hinge cuts, I do like to cut some trees straight off because then they stump sprout. And when a tree stump sprout, it actually kind of creates what they call mineral stumps. MSU Deer Lab did a study on this, and I think when those sprouts that come off of the main stump have something like 30 times the minerals that just a leaf or a twig would have. So it actually acts like a mineral block when you cut them straight off and they sprout, and the deer will hammer them. If I was in the different part of the farm, I could show you a bunch of stump sprouts that just got peppered last summer. But the deer absolutely love them, and it gives them great food, nutrition, and that's the kind of stuff they need. They need woody browse. I expect the deer they're already nipping away at this. I could probably walk up to a branch and just show you. Like, look at that right there. Like, they're eating all this stuff. They're picking at all the twigs. Everything is getting just hammered because this is the kind of food they need this time of year. We're having a pretty tough winter here, and our highest chance of deer mortality comes in about March, when their nutrition reserves are low and they need this kind of food to survive. Guys will throw out alfalfa or corn, but if they haven't been doing that, since the beginning of the winter, it's terrible for deer, and they can actually die from that. This is the kind of food they need. So if you need to do some supplemental feeding on your farm or your piece of hunting property, knocking down a few trees is the way to go, because you get the food that was up there, up that way down to their level, and then they actually might stand a chance. My challenge to you is, if you don't think it works, go in an area where deer are cruising through, and just knock one tree down, throw a camera on it, and I'm sure that you'll have deer that come and eat that. So yeah, this is the summary of the hinge cut bedding area. You can see, it was only been a matter of a handful of days since we had a good snow, and they have just been in here, and they are eating every little twig. I mean, look at that, every little twig that they can get near. And I knocked a few more trees down for them today just to give them a little more food and open up the canopy a little bit more. I do want to show you one last thing here, and then I'll cut the video off. So right up here I got a red oak. When you think from like a TSI standpoint, I got to do a walk through our woods with a forester last summer, and it was really educational. But so like this tree right here, the forester would normally tell you to knock that one down, because if you knock that down, it's going to open up the opportunity for this beautiful big red oak here to get more water and nutrition and things like that this tree's leaching. But this is a red oak as well. So what I did instead today was knock down a couple other trees that were around it that were more junk trees. I think one was a maple and got an ironwood. But the reason I opted not to knock this other red oak down was because if you come and look at this side, it's pretty rotten up the middle. So my assumption is that this tree is gonna die eventually, and this is gonna be my food tree in the future. That'll be my good mass producer. Kick out some acorns. Not every oak tree creates acorns too. So I think most people think if they got an oak, they're getting acorns, but I think it's something like 40-some%. Only 40-some% of oaks will actually create acorns. But by cutting these other trees around it, it opens up the canopy more too, where this one has a better chance of having better acorn production. So it's one thing you can do from a TSI. It's called timber stand improvement. You just kind of release the competing trees around your good oaks, and you can free them up, and they should be able to produce more acorns for you. So all right, well, there's a little buck bed or just deer bed that I kind of raked out today. It had such good back cover to it, I figured I'd try it. There might not be enough for escape routes. I got one going